All right. Good evening once again. So, yesterday
Good evening, sir.
we started general introduction to JavaScript, where I have explained what JavaScript is and also explained some of the key features. And we started looking at variable, and I defined variable as an external or a system which is used to introduce external data into a program. I also defined it as containers which are created by programmers in order to hold values that will be needed in the course of the programming. So that was what led to trying to create some variables. But before then, I was explaining variable keywords. I did mention that in JavaScript, variable need to be introduced with certain keywords like let, var, and costs, which means constant. So these are possible keywords we can use to initiate variables. So what I try to explain here is to let us know that variables are classified with the contents they are holding. And that was when I labeled this as string variable, because this is holding string data type. And then I also labeled this string variable because it is holding string. And then I labeled this as float variable or double variable because it is holding number with decimal units. So the next thing we wanted to look at is having written your variables like this in JavaScript. We should all know that JavaScript does not automatically display its result except they are authorized with any of the output function. And that will take us to the next topic. So our next topic is JavaScript. I expect we are all writing JavaScript outputs or display functions. JavaScript output or display function. So what do we mean by this? Now, just like I was explaining, remember that we created two different files yesterday. We have this as a file where we be writing all our JavaScript. And then we have the HTML where we have our rendering elements. Remember yesterday I explained to us that JavaScript is for adding interactivity to our web pages content. So which means that there have to be a time where you must have created any of those contents, which in this case can be referred to as the elements, which could be your H1, which could be your paragraph tag, which could be your image. Now, whatever content you must have created with these tags in HTML, you are adding interactivity, you are adding certain actions on those elements. So which means that in a real sense, we are building JavaScript on those contents in order to behave in a certain manner that could entertain the website users. For example, you come across websites where images will be sliding at an interval of time. So that is a way of making the website interactive. Or at some points, some ads pop up and then disappear after some time. All these are interactions that are embedded in such a website with the help of the JavaScript. So where I am going is that why did we created this file yesterday and we still have a separate file for JavaScript? So in other words, there must be an element that helps us to display whatever we must have written in JavaScript. For example, in JavaScript, we have created 3 different variables. One of them is first name holding Prosper. The other one is middle name holding Aguero. And the last one is age holding Prosper age. Now, how do we now output? How do we now output all these values stored in these respective variables through a browser to the user? So we need an HTML element to carry them and display them. So like one of the points I made yesterday was you cannot right click here and say you want to open with live server. You would rather consult the HTML file to be able to do that. That is why I refer to this HTML file as rendering documents. In other words, we are using them to render JavaScript functions. So now, when we talk about this display, the display functions, that is exactly what we want to discuss. So now I want to teach us different functions that can be used to output any of these variable content. Okay, Flourish, you have question? I see that you raise up your hand.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so
Sir,
what is the question?
This integer or float, why didn't you put this quote inside?
It is a number. Anything that have to do with number are not required to be quoted. You know, under number data type, though we are still going to dwell much on that. Under number data type, we have two. We have integer. It is called integer when it is a whole number. Once it carries decimal points, like you are having it here now, 19.6, it's no longer an integer number. It becomes floats or double number. So long it is called number, it does not require quote. If you quote it, you have automatically converted number to string. I don't know if that is clear.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right. So I was talking about, I was trying to explain the entire scenario so that we know why we need to understand these functions. For example, if I go to the file I have here and I right click and then I select open with any of so just an update, you know, the one you have there is live server. So there is now another faster extension that does what live server does and faster, which is called 5 server. So you can upgrade from live server to 5 server. So it's another extension which can be used to launch your code or render HTML element on the browser. So let me launch it so that we can see what we are talking about. So despite that we have connected the JavaScript, one will expect that all this should also be outputted because the two files are connected. But you will find out that you will only have probably whatever you must have written in the HTML, but you will not have the one in JavaScript. And that is the reason why we want to learn this output. Network is seriously disturbing Mrs. Constant. Advise her to change the network. So you can see that nothing is currently showing. So why are we not having anything? Because even in your HTML, you have not written any contents. For example, if I type H1 and I say welcome to Digitech Zeal Hub, welcome to Digital Zeal Hub JavaScript training. So if I go back to the front end, you discover that I have just what we have programmed in HTML. But what about all these that we have written here? How come they are not displayed? It is simply because we have not consulted any of the JavaScript what display output. So JavaScript does not display its functions without you authorizing them with any of the outputs we are about to learn. So I think I need to hold on for a few minutes to see if she will join back before I explain this aspect. All right, so we're talking of how do we output, because we added this to the HTML file and then we outputted it. This is what we got. So all the contents we created in JavaScript are not outputted. Why? Because JavaScript require certain function to output its contents. That is what brought about this topic, JavaScript output or display function. So how do we explain them generally? How do we explain them? So JavaScript provides several ways to output data. I hope someone is writing that down. JavaScript provides several ways for outputting data. JavaScript provides several ways to output data to users. To output data to users. So what are these ways? I'll be taking them one after the other. And the first one is, I don't know, let me see if, let me take them, I'm trying to logically take them in a way that it will be easier for us. Okay, so let's quickly mention them. I'm starting with console.log. Console.log. That is the first one I want to discuss. So console.log is one of those JavaScript display function, but this one is only good for debugging of codes. What do I mean by debugging? Maybe you are just trying to test run, not applying JavaScript in real world. You just want to, maybe you are learning just like the way you are learning now, and you want to find out whether you are actually getting something right. So that is why I said most of them, they are only good for debugging. But in real application, there are about 2 of them, and then we will narrow it down to one that you must know if you are going to write JavaScript or HTML. So, but let me start with the console.log. So the console.log is one of the JavaScript output display function, which displays its output in the developer console within the browser. So for example, I want to display what I have in let me take this up, what I have in first name variable. I want to output it. Now this one does not require any HTML elements to render it. In other words, we are not going to involve anything here. So we are just going to extract it from JavaScript, and then we'll get the result in the development console. Now, that console that I'm about to show us can serve as your IDE. If I don't want to write and execute my code with the Visual Studio Code, let's say I am given a laptop and the laptop does not have Visual Studio Code, and I must code probably during an interview. So I can just open a browser, could be Google Chrome or any other browser, and go to the development section. Then the console will be there for me to write my code. So which means that we are saying that that environment is where this method will output the value. So let's look at how to use it to output first name content. So I will simply say console. I will simply say console, console.log, console.log, and then pass in the variable name, So if you look at this, I want to print out Prosper. That is my focus. I want to print out Prosper, and Prosper is stored in this variable name. So what I'm going to do is to easily capture the variable name inside the console, which means that output what is inside this container. That is the literal communication, what we are saying. So now I cannot, display it from the JavaScript file. I must go back to the HTML file and right-click and use any of my browser outputs extension. So now we are expected to see Prosper. But Prosper is not here because we are using console.log, which means that you can't find it on the surface of the browser until you inspect it. So for me to see that particular output Prosper, I have to right-click and then go to inspect. So from inspect, then I would now navigate to the console. This is the console. Once I click here, I should be able to see the Prosper. So that is the implication of using console.log as your JavaScript output method. Do we have any question? Oga Austin, welcome.
Yeah, Mr.
Very soon
Prosper.
that you start paying fine. No? Your 17 is different from our 17. Oh, wow.
I'm actually online, but I was on something else, so
Okay. So
I had to
do we have
quickly get off.
no problem. Do we have question? Any question?
Yes, I have question. If you can do quick refresh, just quick one.
We just started. There are still other ones that we are going to do. But on
Okay.
this, for those that started with me, I just want to find out if you have question.
Sir,
Yes?
this console.log,
Yeah.
like you say it's used for debugging, Abi.
Yes.
But if we use it to implement this, where are we going to use it?
You have answered the question now. What do you want to use it to implement? This is just for testing your code. If you want to write on HTML, you shouldn't use console.log. If the action you want to produce with JavaScript, don't forget we did mention that JavaScript is the action language for front-end development. JavaScript is for adding interactivity to what? To those HTML content. What are the HTML content? The images you must have created, the text you must have created, the links you must have created. So if you check the application of this console.log, is there any place where any of these elements were mentioned? No. There's no place where we say that, okay, this action, let it come on content created by H1 or Peter. So if you look at it, it's just for debugging. It's just for debugging. That is why I first of all took care of that by explaining that just in case, because we are learning and when you are learning programming is an art which you should know before you talk of even say you want to generate real life scenario. You need to know the art of programming. And when you are learning that, you need to understand all this. So that is just one. So I'm going to talk about the second JavaScript output. So we started with this. We created these variables yesterday. The video, I think I've dropped the video link in the group, the aspect of yesterday. If it's not there, I will drop it as soon as I end this session. Is it there?
No.
Okay, so I will drop because I just uploaded it maybe this evening. So I will drop it for Mr. Austin to go and watch and then be able to connect yourself to this class. So if you go through that video, you understand how we came about with this first name equals to Prosper and all of this. So tonight class started from here. So this is the topic we are considering, JavaScript output display function. In other words, we are talking about certain functions that we use in displaying whatever it is we must have written that JavaScript should do, whatever action we must have written for us to see the manifestation of it through the browser. We need to consult one of the output functions. And the first one we consulted or we are consulting is this Console.log. And I said, this one will display the result in the development console. That is why we have to go through inspecting before we can see it. And I said, it is only good for debugging of your code. Okay, so now the next display method we want to talk about is document.write. This is another display function in JavaScript. So this one is also only for debugging. I want to take care of those ones that does not matter before I zero on the ones that matter most to us. So this is also just for debugging, but this one have the capacity of displaying the outcome on the browser body, not in the development environment. So you don't need to inspect before you can see the output or the outcome of this. So for example, I want to output the same information.
No.
The same information. So I will just simply type document.write, and then supply the variable with the value I want to output. So in this case, I'm still outputting the first name. Now, if you go back to your browser, you will discover that you can see that this is a Prosper. So unlike the console.log that display this Prosper in the console development environment, this one is able to display it on the browser body, which means that an ordinary user can see it. But I bet you that ordinary user can never see what is displayed in the development console because they will just be looking at the page. Everything will be blank, unknown to them that the content is already outputted within the development. So it's only developers like us that understand that interface. It's like the browser backend. Okay, so now the question is, you actually want to speak to a content. For example, this particular element now, this could be what I want to talk to with JavaScript. I want to use JavaScript, for example, to change the color, which is what ordinarily CSS should do. Or I want to use JavaScript to add certain action to this. That is what's, or the main reason why we are learning JavaScript, to be able to add action to those elements. For this one now, there's no place in your code where you reference that, okay, this is the HTML element that I want that action to come on. So that's why I said this and this, they are only good for testing your code, debugging. So we are not going to focus on them. You will really see me using them when we start communicating directly on our HTML. Now, the third one I want to talk about is used, but only 5%, which is what? Alert. Alert. So the word alert, where somebody credits you, is a programming term. Alert, I just received alert. All these terms are programming terms, which means that what? A pop-up, a pop-up. So the difference between this one is another JavaScript output method, but the way it displays its output, it comes like a pop-up message on the browser. It doesn't display its content on the browser body. It will just come as a message, and then once you click on OK, then it will disappear. So let me cite a live scenario where you will need this. Let's assume that as a developer, I want to program a kind of a message that the user should see as soon as they get to a page within my website. For example, now I can say, okay, once somebody open my homepage, they should say, thank you for visiting our site as a message, and then disappear. Thank you for visiting. So how do I program that? That is when we need. So you can see that we have been able to link it with something real now, unlike all these ones that we could not link them to anything what real. So now let's say the task is program a pop-up message that greets users. So what I'm going to do, this one also, you are not connecting it to, is displaying on its own alert box. It's not displaying on any HTML element, but just that its own display is useful. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say alert. So I'm not using a variable now. For example, I will just say alert, alert, alert. That word, welcome to Digital Z Hub, is a string. So I will just pass it direct. In this case now, I am not consulting values that have been stored in variable. I am giving it the value directly, and I am acknowledging the value as a string. That is why we have the double quote there, which can as well be single quote as well. So I'll just say what, once they get to the page, I want them to get this message, welcome to Digital Z Hub. Digitech Z Hub. So I want them to get this message. Now, if I go back, it's already, can you see it now? Now, once you come to this site, let me refresh. You get it. Welcome to what? Digital Z Hub. So as long as anybody visits this site, once you get to this site, you will get this pop-up. It could be an advert. Maybe you can say, okay, you are running a promo. So once somebody gets to your page, the person will come across that message talking about certain promo. And then once they click OK, because it is expected that they must have gotten the message. So once they click OK, it will now proceed to the main content. So that is how you use alert. So I can say, okay, how do we use alert to output variable value? So if I don't want to pass in the content directly to the alert box, so I can just reference what? the variable names. In other words, alert age. Alert age. So next time I go to the browser, what you get, just click this, refresh it, you get what? The age. So this time around, we call this value from an existing variable. So that is for alert as one of the JavaScript display method. Any question? Do we have
Yes,
any
sir.
question? Okay, go ahead with your question.
When you put age, it shows a number. Was that also is it by default or okay, okay. Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it. It's okay. It's okay.
All right, so if I want to alert all the variable value. So you are going to be concatenating. That is where concatenation comes up. Let's say you want to alert the person's first name, you want to alert the middle name and the age. So once you have supplied this one, all you do is that you bring in what? Plus. All right, you bring in plus, and then followed by the next variable name. Let's say what? First name. Then you also add your plus, and then followed by middle name. So this is what we call concatenation. That is what you are combining. So if I go back there now and I refresh, you see what I get now, the three of them on the straight line. But there is no space between them. The reason is that you did not also concatenate space. So how do we concatenate empty space between the value so that they do not merge? So it comes, the concatenation of empty space is simply what? Adding empty string. Empty string is just double quotation without having anything inside. And it should always come immediately after the operator, which is the plus. So which means that after between age and first name, I want to create space. So immediately after I've added the plus, I will concatenate the empty string, then add another plus there. Okay, because I want space here. So the same thing after this, I need another space, concatenate what? Empty space, that's empty string, and then also add the plus. Of course, after the last one, I do not need space. Okay, so if I alert again now, let's check again, refresh. So you can see that what? I have space in between. I believe it's clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now let's quickly talk about the major one, which you cannot do without. As a matter of fact, we are going to be using this one 95% in the RE project. So make sure that you pay attention to it. Now, the last one is inner HTML. This is case sensitive inner HTML. The inner is small letter, while the HTML is capital letter. So what do we achieve with this? For those that are writing, the inner HTML JavaScript display method is used to display JavaScript directly on HTML elements. I repeat again. I said the inner HTML JavaScript output method is used to display JavaScript on HTML directly. So which means that it requires a carrier. It relies on HTML elements to help it to display its content. Like here, this one did not rely on any HTML. It simply display the variable value that you created in JavaScript. The same thing with Console.log. But when it comes to this, you must reference HTML element by its ID. So as we proceed, we are going to get to a more advanced topic called JavaScript what? DOM. That is JavaScript's document object model. So there you will now understand different ways of selecting HTML while you are in JavaScript. Just like in CSS, you know, when we are working with external or internal CSS, we were selecting our HTML content by their ID, by their tag name, you should remember, by their class. So that is what we are talking about. So the task is that anytime you are, let me put this in bracket, this requires HTML elements with an ID. So that is one thing you must acknowledge whenever you are consulting this. So which means that if I want to output first name, middle name, age, I need to go to HTML just because I'm using that inner HTML. I'll create an element, let's say p tag, and then add an ID. The ID there is an attribute which we must have settled. So like I was telling Flourish now, that was asking for revision of in HTML and CSS. I said, if you subscribe to my YouTube page at Digital Z Hub, almost every week I upload all my classes at NIT where I'm taking HTML and CSS. So you can, and now I have even organized my video in a way that they are now in playlist. So all the web development videos are in one place. So once you get there, you should be able to what
Okay,
to understand.
are they in sequence?
Yes, yes. Yeah, you will get the description. You use the description once you get the topic. You use the description
Okay.
to know. So now what we are saying here is that inner HTML requires an element to output it. And that element must have an ID. So let's say here I'm using what? Demo 1 as the ID. Now, we are deliberately leaving this, you know, in HTML, for us to see anything on the browser, we ought to have written something here. That is the content we want to output. But we are leaving it empty. The reason is that you are sending the content from JavaScript. That is the logic. Get the logic now. From JavaScript, you are sending the content. So what you actually did in HTML is just to like create the space, the container to receive it. That is why we left it blank. So which means that I want to send Prosper to that what space that I left. So using this method, this is the logic. Let me convert this to avoid conflicts to comment. Take this to comment. So if I come here now and say document, so this is the method, document dot get element by ID. This is a function. So you see that is longer, is more complex than the other three types that we have discussed. Now, document is we're talking about HTML element. Get element by ID. That is the reason why we first of all came here and create an element and ID it. In other words, how is it going to select? How is it going to know exactly the object that will be used to render the function? Is by ID. So ID is a string. ID is a string. For that reason, we are going to what? Put it in a string. And then you type that ID. Let's say what? Demo. Now, I can end it here. I can end it here like this, which means that what I have done here now is that I have captured this. So at the moment, the whole of this in JavaScript is already here. So I can say that what? Let's element equals to this. So you see the way I'm trying to simplify it, which means that I am directly saying that the whole of that element should be captured and saved here. Now, what is my intention? My intention is this. My intention is this. If I have, in this case now, let's say I have I have typed a particular word. Let's say what? Welcome to JS Masterclass. Okay, so that is already displayed on the browser. Welcome to what? JS Masterclass. Where is it here? Let me see. Good. So that is already displayed in the browser. But what do I want to do? I want to, from JavaScript, instruct CSS to increase the size and to give it color. So I'm just trying to show you the communication. I want to confirm that there is communication. So I will now come here. What is the name of where you have stored the whole of that element? Is this. So you simply come here and say element. You say elements. You say element dot style. So this style, you are directly communicating CSS. The style, which CSS property do you want? Let's say color. Then color equals to, you recognize the color here as a string. So if I end it here and I go back to the front end and I refresh, what do you have? So we are supposed to get, let's say, element, your style, color. Okay, so element dot style. Now I'm trying to check what's code. Hope we have demo one. Let's debug. Let's see. Anything wrong here? Yeah, there's a mistake here. Now our ID here is demo one, but we type just what? Demo. So it must be the same. So once I bring in one here and I go back, you can see it now. So I've been able to what? You can see it now. I have style. I have communicated CSS in JavaScript. So you can use JavaScript to style. Only thing is that it's not the main program you're supposed to use. So if I want to increase the size, what I will do is that I will copy the whole of this line, Control C, and paste it. And then I will change the property from color to font size. Then I will say, okay, maybe the font size should be 50 PS. So if I go back to the browser, you see that what I've also what modified that. So I'm going to give us 10 minutes to try something like this. I'll leave my code on the screen. So let's quickly try it. Quickly, 10 minutes. Then once I come back, I will proceed with another aspect of it. So start now. I'm leaving the code on the screen.